Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Rafe, and Harry is taking the week off, but I am joined by a wonderful special guest, a wife, a mother, an engineer, a crafter, a quilter, a reader, an old friend, and a former big brain smarthead on the podcast here, none other than Miss Angela Nash, America's favorite quilter, and now America's favorite reading influencer. Angela, how are you this morning?
I am well, thank you.
Well, that is great to hear. So we are going to talk about Frankenstein, because this episode should drop on Halloween, which is kind of a Frankenstein-y kind of time of the year. But before we get there, I have to thank our listeners. You guys know that we think you guys are the best. So remember, send us a note at bufnagle.com. You can hit the smiley star button, the like button, 5 stars, 10 stars, 100 stars, whatever you do with that. And let us know if we can help you. Remember, get a friend to listen, and you will get a free episode. You know, Harry, if you're doing a lot of podcasts or even listening to a lot of podcasts, you're going to get thirsty. And you know what you're going to need?
What's that?
A smoothie.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I know what you need. You need the BlendJet 2. It's portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, a margarita on the beach, or in your kitchen while you listen to the Buff. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder and powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. It's whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. And it lasts for 15 plus blends, recharges quickly via USB-C. And best of all, it cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap, and you're good to go. It's all clean. Squeaky clean. You know what? They got all kinds of colors, all kinds of patterns. I like to use just simple black. It's classy.
Well, that's because you're a classy guy, Harry. But you know what? Regardless of what kind of class level you have, there's a BlendJet 2 smoothie making blender for you. So the question is, what are you waiting for? Go to the blendjet.com link in our description below and grab yours today. Be sure to use the promo code Bufnagle to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other blender in the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of BlendJet 2. They guarantee you will love it, or you will get your money back. Blend any time, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to the blendjet.com link in the description and use the code Bufnagle to get 12% off and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever. Angela, Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, young girl, Geneva.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing. Okay, and I had no idea, because the only thing that I know of Frankenstein is Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder and like all the things that in Halloween, and the green guy with the bolts in his neck and like all that. And you know what, I never really had a ton of interest in Frankenstein. And the movie was funny, whatever. But then a very good friend of mine decided to have a Halloween party that was a little bit different. And sadly, because of family circumstances, she had to put it off. But the idea was that everybody that was coming will have read Frankenstein. And then you would come to the party, sit, have a meal, have drinks, and discuss Frankenstein besides, enjoy everybody together. So I was going to go to this party. So I'm like, okay, I got to read Frankenstein. And by luck, because I'm a quilter and a sewer, I do a vast majority of my reading through audiobooks, which is an awesome way to do two things that you love at once. So I came across on Audible by luck, Frankenstein, read by Dan Stevens. And it's Frankenstein is not a long book. How many pages is this?
My version is 230 pages, give or take.
Okay, mine has smaller words, I guess. It's only mine is only has 167. It's not long. And the audiobook was only something like 8 hours or whatever. But oh my goodness. Let me tell everybody, if you don't have time to read Frankenstein after because everybody's going to want to go out and start reading Frankenstein as soon as they're done listening to us ramble on. Go download Dan Stevens' Audible audiobook because it was amazing. So, okay, anyways, it was super amazing. And then as soon as I finished it, I started sending messages and texts to all my friends, like, because then I needed to talk to people about it.
Well,
And
and that's how I got involved here, because I was
Yes.
thinking it's one of those things that was in the back of my mind, like books I needed to read. And you had sent me that note, and I thought, and I was in the middle of a 7-day grandpacation where I was visiting. I was at the Bufnagle studios there in North Carolina, looking after grandkids and hanging around. And I thought, well, it's a small book, so I zipped over to the bookstore and I picked up a copy. And I guess my first statement is that whatever you think you know about the story, unless you've read the book, what you think about it's wrong.
Yes.
I thought I was pretty smart. I was like, Frankenstein's not the monster. Frankenstein's the guy that makes the monster. And I knew that before I read the book, but that is like,
that's like the so surface, not even really like what the story is about. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right. And so Mary Shelley writes this story. She was married to Percy Shelley, who was a great poet, an all-time human scumbag. Right. and she and her half-sister Claire and Lord Byron and Percy were hanging out with Lord Byron in Geneva in the summer of 1816. And somebody says, I got an idea. Let's have a contest and write a ghost story. And everybody else bails out on it, apparently. Byron wrote one, I guess.
Yeah, I think so, but I think it's like lost to the ages.
Yeah, and either that or it's not very good. But it didn't Frankenstein, okay? It didn't do that.
Right.
So this 19-year-old girl writes this story that has become Frankenstein. So this book is, you start reading it and you think, is this the right book? Because this doesn't seem like what I'm supposed to be reading. It is a Russian nesting doll of stories, right? It's a story and a story and a story and a story. At least 3, maybe 4 levels of story, right?
Yeah.
And it starts with Robert Walton, who is a young man who wants to go north from Russia to explore the North Pole. And he tells his story in a series of letters to his sister. He tells of seeing this strange creature on a dog sled high in the Arctic. And then the next day, this other guy shows up and he's nearly dead. And he's chasing the first guy. And the nearly dead man is Victor Frankenstein. We're going to spoil the book here today. Is that okay?
There is no way to talk about it without spoiling all the surprises and stuff. So actually, okay, everybody that wants to read it and listen to it, stop now, go read it, and then come back. Because honestly, oh my gosh, the first time through reading it along, because really, you know nothing about this story. And it's like going to a movie for the first time and you get to those parts and you're like, oh my gosh.
I didn't see that coming.
Oh my gosh. So, okay.
All right. So Victor Frankenstein is the guy, and he shows up on this boat, and Walton nurses him back to health and recuperates on Walton's ship. And in that time, Frankenstein tells his story to Walton, right? And
so what's really interesting about that, now that I've gotten to the end of the book, is that Frankenstein sees in Walton him a bit. And because the book starts out with Walton is like on this expedition, and he's writing to his sister and saying that he's like, what is he says at the beginning of the book? I have one want which I have never yet been able to satisfy, and the absence of the object of which I now feel as the most severe evil. I have no friend, Margaret. And he's like in search for a friend, and he says, which I thought was really interesting. It is true that I have thought more and that my daydreams are more extended and magnificent, but they want, as the painters call it, keeping. I greatly need a friend who would have sense enough not to despise me as romantic, to regulate my mind. And so he is in search of a friend, and Victor sees that, I think, in him, because throughout the whole story, Victor doesn't really talk to anybody about all the horrible things that are going on, but he tells Walton about it.
He does tell Walton, right? And that is one of, like we were talking. There's a million themes in this book, right? And if you're a 12th grader and you have to, and you have a paper due tomorrow on Frankenstein, loneliness is, you can focus on loneliness, and it goes over and over and over again with this idea of people longing for relationship with people, in a real relationship with people. And there's a lot of screwed up relationships. Yes, it's a book about human beings, right? So there's a lot of screwed up relationships and things, but Frankenstein is alone, and he gets pulled onto the ship, and Walton nurses him back to health, and Victor tells his story. All right. He's an Italian, born to this wealthy, he was born in Italy to this German family. His father's Alphonse, his mother's Carolyn. He's got two little brothers, Ernest and William, are substantially younger than he is. He loves science and alchemy, and his parents adopt a little sister for him when he's like 5 years old. So they go out, he and his mother are wandering around, and they find this impoverished family that has a bunch of kids, and one of them had been assigned to them when somebody else died or got adopted or something. And they adopt Elizabeth, who is this wonderful little just ray of sunshine and light to them. And Victor really takes her as his own. And if you read it, the first time I read that, I was like, oh, this is so nice. This is so wonderful. But then I went back and read it, and it's like super creepy. It's like
it's like his thing.
His thing is Elizabeth. And now there's another sister, Justine, that arrives later, and she becomes nanny.
Yeah. I think, and they all call each other cousin in the book, I think. But yeah, it seems like, because his family, the Frankensteins, have money, and I mean, not like an obscene amount of money, but enough money and enough station that they kind of gather these waifs, these various children and people along, and they take them in as part of their family. So
Justine is there, and she becomes kind of the nanny to little William. Yeah. Once Carolyn dies of scarlet fever that she caught from Elizabeth. So Elizabeth killed mom is really a way to look at it. Okay, so.
So sad.
All right, and this is right before Victor's going to head off to the university. So he's a young man. He's very vulnerable. He's very impressionable, and he is loving the sciences, and he just really wants to understand how the world works. He's a early 19th century materialist wanting to understand the nature. He wants the secrets of the heavens revealed to him.
So here's one of the most hilarious things, though, because in this book, the number of rabbit holes I went down was like insane, because really my education is obviously so lacking that I'm like, I don't even know half of these references. So I had to look up, because when he gets to college, he likes to learn. And one of the things that he was reading was Agrippa. And I'm like, who's this Agrippa dude? Because he loved Agrippa. He is like 33 BC or something like that. And so he arrived at college with all of this very, very old, archaic knowledge.
Well, and he was reading that stuff, and he showed his father. He was like, hey, I'm reading this really old stuff. And his dad's like, that's stupid. Don't read that. And as soon as his dad said that, he was like, oh, I'm going to read that.
I am all in on Agrippa now.
And he even says, had he just explained to me where it was wrong, I would have been all right. But the fact that he said it's all trash, don't waste your time on it, I was like, I'm going all in. So he reads all the old stuff before he
Yeah.
gets to college.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he
So then he
and
was
then
going to college for having been steeped in all of this crazy old stuff.
yeah, so he read crazy old stuff, and then he really gets into and for a while after his mother dies, he goes into mathematics because he was like, enough of that old metaphysics stuff. I'm just going to do math. But then he that does not what's the right word? That does not
Satisfy him?
yeah. Well, it says it's when I look back, it seems to me as if this almost miraculous change of inclination and will was the immediate suggestion of the guardian angel of my life, the last effort made by the spirit of preservation to avert the storm that was even then hanging in the stars and ready to envelop me. Her victory was announced by an unusual tranquility and gladness of soul, which followed the relinquishing of my ancient and latterly tormenting studies. It was thus that I was to be taught to associate evil with their prosecution and happiness with their disregard. It was a strong effort of the spirit of good, but it was ineffectual. Destiny was too potent, and her immutable laws had decreed my utter and terrible destruction. So that's a lesson to go into mathematics right there. That is
from the math guy.
Yeah, stay away from the black arts and go into math, because what did he say? It is a strong effort of the spirit of good is mathematics. So there you go, right from Victor Frankenstein. Well, he goes to college. And he goes into chemistry and essentially biochemistry from those days, and he learns he works to try to animate dead stuff and bring it back to life. That's his goal.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of discussion of lots of things going on in there, but that's short. We're trying to do the short version here so we can get done in one episode. Yeah. He creates this gigantic man creature, I guess I'll call it, 8 feet tall, and he brings it to life. And what was interesting to me is there's no discussion here really of what it took to bring it to life.
Right.
Just that one day it comes to life, and it just apparently what he was doing brings it to life. And to me, this was the first part I really grabbed onto. And this to me, well, I'll tell you what I think this is. Here's this little section. How can I describe my emotions at this catastrophe, or how delineate the wretch whom with such infinite pains and care I had endeavored to form? His limbs were in proportion, and I had selected his features as beautiful. Beautiful, great God! His yellow skin scarcely covered the work of muscles and arteries beneath. His hair was of a lustrous black and flowing, his teeth of pearly whiteness, but these luxuriances only formed a more horrid contrast with his watery eyes that seemed almost of the same color as the dun white sockets in which they were set, his shriveled complexion and straight black lips. This is a horrendously ugly being, but while he was creating it, he had no recognition of how ugly it was. And this, to me, this is how I'm thinking, okay, because as one of the all-time great sinners, this feels to me like what sin looks like, right? Before you start, Satan's going, this is going to be great. No one's going to care. This is going to be wonderful. Everything's going to be perfect. And as soon as the sin takes place, everything becomes ugly.
Well, and he was, I think, and also a big part of that with sin is that it seems great and fun. It seems great and fun. It's beautiful. He says, I had selected his features as beautiful. And then he's like, great God, this is not. I go, what in the world happened? One kind of thing, because you kind of said that he didn't say how he did it, but leading up to the creation of him, he kind of destroyed his soul, I believe, with things that he was striving for these things just with abandon and obsession. And he spent time, I didn't look it up because it creeped me out, but he spent time in charnel houses, which I thought, if I Google what a charnel house is, there's probably going to be really creepy, yucky stuff I don't want to learn about. But charnel houses are obviously horrible old morgues, from the ancient times. I don't know. That's what it seemed like. So he spent time in charnel houses. He spent time digging up bodies. And I didn't I didn't note where it was, but he actually makes note that he spent time torturing creatures to
Animals. Yeah.
understand how things had life and how they died. And so those things leading up to whatever it is that happened to have him discover this, I think he was like almost like tearing apart little pieces of his soul while he was doing that. But and he thinks he's making something beautiful, and the thing comes to be. And it
Well,
is,
and I've listened to a lot of stuff on this and read a lot of stuff since the book. And there's discussion that, Victor goes to college, and at night he spends a lot of time, well, essentially doing sins of the flesh, but in a very perverse way, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of doing what a lot of college guys do, he did it in a very twisted way, and there's like a whole 18th or 19th century kind of association with death and sex and Halloween, and all these things are kind of tied together. And then the other thing that is in there is Victor's bizarre relationship with his family during this time. Because he completely stops communicating with his family. Every now and then he gets letters from his father and from his sister, and he doesn't write back. He never sends information back. He is all in to this creep fest that's taking place at night. And it's one of these things that's probably, what do you tell kids that in anything you can do it after midnight is probably something you should probably better be done during the day.
Yes. I don't know how many times I've said that.
Yeah. So all these, this is what's great about this story. On one hand, you can just kind of read it that he did these things, but at another level, there's all these pieces hiding underneath that eventually results in this construction of the creature, the monster, the demon, whatever he calls it by a number of different names. Yeah. And he becomes immediately repulsed by this thing and flees. And then he gets sick. He just gets physically ill. Yeah. And his friend comes and nurses him back to health over a period of several months. And then he gets a letter from his father saying that his younger brother, William, has been murdered.
Yes.
And this is a bad thing. Justine, his nanny, has been charged with the crime. And Victor realizes, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Who's going to kill little William? And then he puts two and two together and figures, I'll bet the monster went and killed my little brother.
Yeah. But while that trial is going on, oh my gosh, I'm like, I don't know. Did she kill him? Like, what happened? Like, did she get tricked into killing him? I wasn't sure. I don't know.
Yeah, it was, and then to me, and I think this has come up to a number of people, is all of this construction of the monster just in Victor's head?
Yeah.
Is it a Jekyll and Hyde thing? Right.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
And so that was something that's floating around in people's head. I think it's very obvious at certain points because other people see the monster too. Right, so it's not just in his head.
It's not a figment of his deranged imagination. It's not a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing.
Which is another thing we ought to read.
Yes. It's true.
Go figure. Right. Okay, we are now 1/4 of the way through the book and halfway through our podcast. Okay, so all right, so Victor realizes that the monster is the one that killed William, and Justine has been falsely charged with the crime. Or is that right? Falsely accused.
Yes.
And he realizes it must have been the monster, but he doesn't say anything. He doesn't act. And Justine, Justice, he doesn't come to her defense, and she is eventually she's hanged because to find her guilty, and he just watches it happen. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is. It's awful. That's super sad.
So then he gets really sad and he retreats to the mountains. He feels bad about what he did. He feels bad what happened to William. He also bad compounds. This is one of those things about sin. All right. Mm-hmm. So you do something stupid, you do something contorted, you sin, you go off the mark, as they say, you move in the wrong direction. And then Satan says things like, man, you suck. You are, God's never going to forgive you for that. And what you do is you double down on the sin, and you do another thing to make it worse and make it worse and make it worse and make it worse. And so that's there's an example of that. Victor retreats to the mountains, and you know who he runs into in the mountains?
Who?
The monster. Right? Right. And he runs into him in a cave up in the mountains. Okay.
Yeah.
And the monster says, "Listen to my story. I want you to hear me."
Yeah.
Is what he says.
Yes. Which, although interesting, so this is Victor's retelling of what the monster has told him. But
actually, it's Walton's writing of Victor's telling of what the monster said.
Yes, we're like a couple nestings in, but now we are in. Does it actually go to like, because it's written in like 3 books, like the old novel style. Anyways, we're in the section where the monster tells his tale, and it's oh my, okay, I cried several times during this section. This whole thing.
Well, let's tell you why she cried. All right. So the monster, he tells the tale that he became aware, like, of how his awareness came through. Okay. So he's like, he comes to life, and the idea is like, well, he's just an infant, and he has no understanding of sensory perception and how things work, and how he felt hunger and what that felt like, and how he realized that his different senses were providing sensory, you can see all of this understanding of the nature of the mechanics of human physiology are at play there in the early 1800s. And he talks about how he became aware, and how he found rejection everywhere. Everywhere he showed up with people shunned him because he was so hideous. But finally he finds shelter in a shed next to a cabin in the woods. All right. And in that cabin is living an exiled French family, and the monster hides there. But what he gets to do is there's a crack in the wall, and he gets to watch. He gets to watch the family. He's a voyeur watching the family, and watching them live. And he witnesses, he witnesses all good things, right? And he sees humanity. He sees love and fidelity, generosity, tenderness, caring, joy, laughter, language, wisdom, and all the good things that you're supposed to see in humanity. He sees them in there. And he ends up doing helpful things for the family. Like, he actually goes out at night, collects firewood, and leaves it on the porch. And they're like, "Who, you didn't?" Well, look, it's the firewood fairy,
Yeah, it's
and
awesome.
so they're very happy about that. And it's pretty much, I think it's 3 people live in there. It's an old man who is blind, and his son, right, and
daughter.
And his daughter. Okay. And they're all very nice. And then some other people show up, and he talks to them, but eventually long story short, all right. He becomes highly literate.
Yes.
And he learns to read. He finds some old books. Okay. And miraculously he finds Paradise Lost.
Yes.
He finds Lives by Plutarch, one of the volumes of Plutarch's Lives, and The Sorrows of Werther. Did you ever read The Sorrows of Werther?
I did not. And that's actually one rabbit hole that I did not go down, surprisingly. So, but there's
I don't know exactly what these, but I think these, like, Paradise Lost is a relationship between God and man, maybe. Plutarch's Lives between man, and The Sorrows of Werther are like, I think some people call it Sorrows of Young Werther. So I think it is something about growth and growing up. And so but we'll have somebody come in and tell us, if you're a big brain smart head and you know The Sorrows of Young Werther, then you are welcome to come on in and tell us why that turned Frankenstein into the monster. But he becomes highly literate, and actually the best writing and the best storytelling is the monster. The monster is like this genius. He's like a genius English professor. Is what he is, a humanities professor. He knows all of this stuff. But he sees his reflection in a pool of water, and he realizes it's kind of an narcissist thing. He is so ugly, and he realizes that he is hideous, and that is part of the problem, is he views this. But he knows he has come to know virtue and love by seeing the family and by reading the books.
Yes. Okay. So he has come to know virtue and love. I don't know. I have a, it's hard to understand, I think, because he has come to know it through seeing what has happened with the family. He has read a lot about it, but, and then he also acts virtuous. He acts very selflessly, right? Doing things for the family. So then, but then he has no ability to really, really interact with the world in a virtuous way. And that's what he really wants to do.
Yeah. And it feels, for me, it feels kind of like it's adolescent virtue is how it looks to me. It's like, I kind of know these things and but I've never really been pushed. Right. And virtue is really only virtue when it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I think, and there's some hardship for him because he does feel like that main thing. He does feel the loneliness. He's all alone in the shed and they are not.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody he sees that's good, they are surrounded by other people. So finally, he reveals himself to the family. He goes to the father first, and
so the father was blind.
Yes, the father is blind.
So that was key. The father was blind because he's already been spurned by humanity, and like a couple different times up till now. And the father is blind, and everybody else is out. And he's like, okay, if I reveal myself to the father, and I can get him to understand me, then he can help me.
He can be on my side. Yeah.
Be on my side and be friends with everybody else. So he goes in when everybody's out and he's like, okay, it's my turn.
Right. So he goes in and they have a good conversation, right? I mean, it's a positive thing. And then the son comes back and and it's sad. Oh, we're going to cry again. Here we go.
I'm going to cry. It was heart-wrenching. It was so awful. Where did I? Because he's like, well, he talks to the father, and he's like, I'm worried that nobody's gonna like me, and I need help. And the father's like, okay, don't worry,
it'll be all right.
It'll be all right. People are good.
How ugly could you be?
People are good. Like, it'll be okay. Not to worry. And when he went, he's like, I don't even need food. I just need warmth and rest with you. And the father's like, do not despair. To be friendless is unfortunate, but the hearts of men, like, it'll be good. Don't despair. And so then he's the monster's thinking it's going to be good. It's going to be okay. He's like, I'm not going to be driven out. And then he hears everybody else coming. The monster hears everybody else coming, and he then just jumps. He's like, now is the time. Save and protect me. You and your family are the friends whom I seek. Do not you desert me in this hour of trial. And they come in, and he's clinging to the father's knees, and the sister faints. The friend that has showed up, she runs away, and the son just beats him and pulls him off, and it's just awful.
It is like, so, the question, so there's a couple other themes here, right? And the two other ones I laid out were justice and mercy. Mm-hmm. And the feeling is the monster doesn't get justice. That is not right. That what happened. In fact, everywhere along the line, the monster doesn't get justice. And because nobody practices any mercy toward him. But then when he has the opportunity later on to do good, he chooses not to. He deliberately chooses not to do good. He does things against. So they're all, it's not like there's just one fatal flaw in all these characters.
Oh,
right? So many of these characters are so messed up in so many ways. It is, it's a pretty good depiction of humanity there. So the family attacks him, he flees, and he does not return. He gives up all hope of companionship with humanity, and he goes to Geneva to find Victor, hoping that that Victor can help him. And on his way there, that's when he murdered William and he framed Justine. He deliberately, it wasn't like just a happenstance thing. He took something that was on William and he actually stashed it in Justine's pocket when she had fainted.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was severely evil, but very clever.
Yes.
So he has knowledge, but not virtue. The monster demands that, okay, this is where I didn't see this coming. The monster then demands that Victor make him a companion.
Yeah.
You need to make me, you have a companion? I need a companion. And if you do, we will just run off to South America. You will never have to see us again. And we will not haunt you. But if you do not make me the companion, then I will haunt you and I will kill your whole family and all your friends. And your life's going to be miserable because you didn't make me a companion, but you made me.
Yeah.
So Victor agrees to make the Bride of Frankenstein, right? And the monster says he will be watching from afar. Right? That's how their conversation ends. And then there's a little scuffle and the monster runs away. And that's it. That's it. So Victor says he has to make a second monster.
Yes. So this was interesting. And I think this line was actually before we hear his whole story, before we hear the monster's story, because he actually repeats it several times.
Right.
He says to Victor, remember that I am thy creature. I ought to be thy Adam, but I am rather the fallen angel, which whom thou drivest from joy for no misdeed. And so this is one of those Paradise Lost references that I finally figured out as a reference. Okay. Everywhere I see bliss from which I alone am irrevocably excluded. I was benevolent and good. Misery made me a fiend. Make me happy, and I shall again be virtuous. So, okay.
So he's an adolescent.
He is. So this is an interesting quote that I found from Hume. I can't remember his first name. He is a Scottish philosopher of the 1700s.
Is that David Hume?
Yes. Thank you, David. I couldn't remember his first name. Okay.
Well, I know that much about Hume.
So, okay. This describes both of them, but grief and disappointment give rise to anger. Okay. This is also Yoda, but anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know why Hume was quoting Yoda. Okay. Grief and disappointment give rise to anger, anger to envy, envy to malice, and malice to grief again, till the whole circle be completed. And it just goes round and round and round and round. And they're all being mean and angry and upset. But, okay, here's the other circle. Because in this quote, he says, make me happy, and I shall again be virtuous.
And that's the wrong direction.
Right. You cannot say, I will be virtuous if you make me happy, do for me what I need, and then I will have the virtue. No, you need to have the virtue.
The virtue will give you the happiness.
The virtue will give you the happiness. It's all, like, everything in this is backward. I mean, the whole book, like, all the things are backward, right?
Well, it's a cautionary tale, right? I mean,
Yes,
it's a modern, isn't it called the modern Prometheus? Or a cautionary tale. And it is, it's a warning. And
it is.
If you can't pick out of here what not to do, then you're not a very good reader.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So Victor says he'll make the female monster, and he acquiesces, I guess is the right word.
Yeah,
and then, but by now it's very obvious he is betrothed to Elizabeth, who is his sister. That's air quotes. Okay. But he says, you know what? I'm going to put this wedding on hold because I got to go to England to work on a thing. And he won't tell. And everybody's like, okay, go ahead. See you later. And Elizabeth's like, well, okay, I guess it'll be all right. And so he goes to England, and his best friend accompanies him. His best friend is Clerval, who is kind of an anti-Victor. He's got like a soft side, and Victor is like all hard sciences, and Clerval is hey, let's smell the flowers, dude. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so Clerval gets talked into accompanying him. And then once they get to England, Victor leaves Clerval alone. He says, I got to go work on some private thing. You're here. You stay here in where were they? In somewhere in Scotland.
Yeah.
And so Victor starts getting worried that creating another monster is going to make things worse. He gets worried about that. And he is also worried that the first monster is following him and watching his progress. So when he's getting really close, now keep in mind, he's traveling with, like, this is going to be a companion to this 8-foot monster man. So even if he kind of reduces, if he scales it down a little bit, it's still going to be this gigantic woman made of dead parts. And so he's carrying all this stuff around with, like, in trunks and stuff. It's got to smell terrible, flies and maggots and terrible stuff. All right. And he puts this thing together in this laboratory he has rented. I guess you can just go rent, you go to, what is it? Verbo, and you get, like, I need
I know. I do not want to rent that place after Frankenstein.
Oh, goodness. Just make sure you mop the floor. Okay. So he goes there and he decides that, you know what, I'm not going to do this. And he destroys his creation right before he brings it to life. And of course the monster is watching his work. Yeah. The monster sees his bride be destroyed, and the monster goes nuts. All right. And threatens that he's going to destroy Victor. And he says, I will be with you on your wedding night. And Victor says, oh, well, you're going to kill me on my wedding night. Well, fine. So I'll just make sure I have a pistol and a knife and a small army of, of the Swiss Guard or whoever it is. And so the monster has threatened him again. And then Victor gets, he's like all shook up from that, and the monster leaves, and Victor gets in a little boat to go, it's midnight. I'm going to get on a little boat. I'm going to go row around in the sea off northern England. And the winds change, and he gets blown to Ireland. And as soon as he walks on shore, they're like, you're under arrest for the murder of Clerval, who was his friend. Yeah. And he was like, what the heck? Yeah. So he gets thrown in jail, and he has a nervous breakdown in jail, and his father is called. They contact his father, and his father comes, and he finally comes out of his stupor, and he decides at his trial that he's going to tell his story. So he tells the story of the monster. He tells everybody everything, kind of like he should have done when Justine was on trial. But it's, that was just Justine. This is Victor. So Victor stands up for himself, like he should have for Justine. So Victor gets acquitted, but he tells everybody the story, and it turns out that the monster has killed Clerval, and Victor has an alibi because of the timing of things. He was still at the laboratory, so he's let off the hook. But what we see in this thing is that Victor is more than willing to save his own skin, but he's not going to put his reputation on the line to protect somebody innocent like Justine.
Yeah. I don't know. He's awful, and he is so lost. I found this interesting quote about what drives ambition, and because I feel he has this ambition. But it's been driven just by his self-aggrandizement, I guess. And because of that, everything goes awry. And this was a fun thing from Nietzsche. Okay. At times, our strengths propel us so far forward, we can no longer endure our weaknesses and perish from them. He's just, I don't know.
And this brings to the question, right? Who's the real monster here?
Yeah.
All right. And that is the question. That's one of those themes. Who's the real monster? And they're both monsters. All right. Monster begets monster, I guess is one way to think about it. Victor is, the monster's horrible, and Victor is right there with him. And there's a lot of people that don't do the right thing, I guess. Victor goes home with his father. Preparations are underway for the wedding to Elizabeth. Victor prepares for the wedding by preparing to fight the monster, because the monster said, I will be with you on your wedding night. And I'm thinking, as I'm reading this, I'm like, you're afraid for your life, dude? I think he's going after Elizabeth. Dude,
that
protect
was
the
one
lady.
point where I'm like, I kind of saw that coming, but
yeah, and I was like, this has got like, and then I thought, well, maybe it's too obvious. Maybe I'm supposed to conclude that, but he's really like, but he wouldn't say that. He's going after Elizabeth. And wedding night comes, and Victor's like, "You stay here in the hotel room, honey. I'm going to go look for the monster."
yeah,
and he steps out of the room, and in a heartbeat, Elizabeth dead because the monster was chasing around, jumped in through the window, and killed her. Yeah. And he comes back, and there's like, and some people at this point recognize that, you know, every female relationship that Victor has had has been less than what you would expect a relationship to be between Victor and a woman. All right. So he loses his mother, and he doesn't stand up for Justine. She gets destroyed. He destroys the monster, the female monster. He conveniently lets some people say he wanted Elizabeth gone, and he just let the monster do it for him. And maybe that's a psychological thing, but every woman that, like, here's, what are they? Hat tip. Don't get romantically involved with Victor Frankenstein, I guess is the idea. If you're a young lady, don't go. So it's the monster kills Elizabeth and taunts Victor and then escapes. And then Victor's father is overcome with grief, and he dies. And Victor vows to pursue the monster and chases him all the way through Europe, across Russia, and into the Arctic. And along the way, the monster leaves him little clues. So like, haha, I was here. And, you know, he's just got, it's like this Batman chase across Northern Europe. And he is getting very close to the monster when the ice pack shifts and the monster gets away, and Victor gets picked up by Walton in the boat.
Finally, back to the beginning.
Finally, we're back to the beginning, and we're back to the
beginning. We are back in the boat, so all of this, the story that has happened is back within where we were in the first few pages, and so all this has happened, and Victor is like, okay, this is all the horrible stuff that has happened, and this is why you shouldn't just try to make yourself a friend, because I tried to do that and it went really bad for me. But Victor wants Walton to like take up his chase.
I'm ready to die. This chase has killed me. So why don't you pick up where it left off? Because you're going north anyway, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're going north. So awesome.
But the crew doesn't want to go north. The crew is mutinying, and they're saying, dude, you got to turn us around, man. This isn't working out. We're stuck here in the ice. We're like a Shackleton thing before Shackleton was even a Shackleton thing.
Yeah.
And we want to go back down. And there is a very interesting speech that Victor gives to the crew. He calls them cowards. And I read that and I was like,
I highlighted that whole thing.
Yeah, that was quite the speech. He was like, why, if you're going to come do this, why don't you finish what you started? It was so it's really interesting because Victor kind of chastises these guys for not sticking to the plan and going out and doing great things. And it's a very, if you're like a football coach or something like this, this is a great speech. But in the context of understanding what Victor's current mental state is, I'm wondering if this is just the babblings of, like, at some point though, you have to say, you know what, maybe we do have to turn around. And it's interesting because Victor, he waxes and wanes with whether you should go all in or whether you should just turn around and don't try to make yourself a monster. But he's psychotic.
He is. But there were some fabulous lines in this. He's like, poor souls, they were chilly and returned to their warm firesides. Just like, okay. So the first thing, though, that besides the rantings, I'm like, this is an amazing speech. It is so very like Henry V on St. Crispin's Day. Have you listened to that recently?
Not recently, but I did try to quote it the other day and failed. So I think it's
Agincourt. Amazing. Okay, that's one that like all the hairs raise with that. Amazing. And so this speech that Victor Frankenstein trying to like taunt them into, oh, you're cold, it's horrible, you want to go home to your fire. Like he's trying to spur them on to like take up his crazy killing of this tracking of his demon that he created. But it's almost, it's the opposite of the St. Crispin's Day speech. And I really do feel like she was kind of referring back to Shakespeare and that speech from Henry V. Just like so much of this refers back to Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which, interestingly, when she was little and her mom and dad had super cool people over, and Coleridge would be standing in their family room reciting the Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
When she was like 4.
And this like soaked into her. And so much of that is this these crazy goings off and being alone and battling against evil. And she,
This is
go ahead.
well, no, you're right. This is a wonderful and he really rips into it. I remember reading this and I was a little tired and I started reading this. I was like, holy cow, he's really going after them. What do you mean? What do you demand of your captain? Are you then so easily turned from your design? Did you not call this a glorious expedition? And wherefore was it glorious? Not because the way was smooth and placid as a southern sea, but because it was full of danger and terror. Because at every new incident, your fortitude was to be called forth and your courage exhibited, because danger and death surrounded it. And these you were to be brave and overcome. And he keeps going. And then he says, you were going to do all this and now you're backing off because you're cold?
Yeah, right.
Cowards.
Bunch of cowards.
Anyway, you want to fire up your football team. That's what you read them. All right. Yeah. So that's.
I mean, because it is cold. So
it's cold, just like Shackleton was very cold. All right. So
yeah.
Anyway, he does that, and then he dies, and then the monster is distraught. Actually, that Victor Frankenstein has died, and this is interesting because it was like the monster only had purpose to be chased, to cause torment to Frankenstein. And when Frankenstein died, it's like your nemesis, like if you're Peyton Manning and Tom Brady retires, or the other way around. I mean, you've had this nemesis there, and all of a sudden they're gone, and now I have nothing left to live for. Mm-hmm. That's what the monster feels. And then the monster says, well, I guess I'll go take my little dog sled and I'll push it far up into the Arctic. I'll light it on fire and I'll kill myself. And that's it. Over. Done. Yeah. No more monster.
Yeah.
And Walton goes back home. So if you want to write a sequel, you have to probably start with Walton, and then you have to, I don't know, have some tutelage somewhere along the line and some young other Frankenstein to be, and then they go up and they find some, I don't know, DNA from the monster or something like that in the Arctic North. It's a great story, and you can read it at a million different levels, and it's very important to talk to other people about it, because otherwise you just read it and you just think it's just a story of some crazy stuff happening. But I think there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah. There is a lot more in that. And I think so you had mentioned at the beginning about loneliness and being alone. And at the end, it's also so very sad again for the monster, because he is feeling so alone, but he's like so confused. And he says, in some of it, it's basically a big, long, several pages of speech that the monster says as he's trying to figure out, well, my creator's gone now, like what happens to me? But he says, when I run over the frightful catalog of my sins, I cannot believe that I am the same creature whose thoughts were once filled with sublime and transcendent visions of the beauty and majesty of goodness. But it is even so. The fallen angel becomes a malignant devil. Yet even that enemy of God and man had friends and associates in his desolation. I am alone. And I don't know, I started thinking on, can you be human and be alone? Can you know virtue and be alone? Do you need and I think it's can we be human, or do we have to have that companionship? Although, as he noted from Paradise Lost, even the devil has companions, right?
Right,
So
right.
I guess that's not specifically it, but that's one of the big themes of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, is he's alone, because he has a lot of dead bodies he's riding around with.
Yes.
So that was one of the rabbit holes that I had gone down, because again, one of those things that I had not read, surprisingly, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and I thought, well, it's referenced so often, I better look up and see what this is. And I Googled it, and I found the most amazing YouTube recording of Sir Ian McKellen reading the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Everybody go listen to that after you listen to, but actually before you listen to Frankenstein, because it's only a half an hour. And so many of the themes are in Frankenstein, but you just...
I listened to that actually in yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was, I agree with you. It was wonderful. And it's great to have a great reader.
Yes.
Read it to you as you're watching the words. All right. And that is, you can do it while you are cleaning up from the dinner table, but you can't process. If you are reading the words on the screen and you're listening at the same time, you will get a lot more out of that. And he will teach you how to read that well.
Yes.
And I found it really, really, really good.
Yes.
And
so that YouTube with Sir Ian McKellen reading it is, you see all the old, I think it's like 1787. The text is scrolling by as he's reading it, and it just it's amazing like that. But one of the little tiny 4-line passages from that poem was, alone, alone, all alone, alone on a wide, wide sea, and never a saint took pity on my soul in agony. Just alone.
Aloneness it's excruciating. And that's why they do solitary confinement. That among the reasons is just to break you. And it is, I'm going to say it's hard to be human, because I suppose you probably could be human, but without someone else to virtue toward, it feels like, what's the point? How are you going to do all those good things without someone to do them too? So I think we are called to be, we are communal people. And I think that's the thing we've talked about on this podcast a lot.
Yeah.
Is the value of doing those sorts of things. So, all right, we are approaching an hour.
Yes.
All right. And so let's, is there anything you want to close? Like, I think we talked about these themes. We've gone through the whole story. Is there anything in particular that you want to leave? Here's your chance. Final chance.
Okay. It was so deep, but I have to leave with this fun quote that I have from the book regarding education, because I feel like, so not just education as in like going to school, because I feel like you and I, Rafe, we are still educating ourselves.
We're trying. Yeah.
We are trying. And you go down these rabbit holes and you find these things, and a friend has some party, and all of a sudden you're reading another book and you have so much that you're like, oh my goodness, look at all of these things. Like, look at all of the world. And when Clerval was trying, it's early on in the book, and he was kind of joking with Frankenstein, because Clerval's dad was, I don't know, he was like he was a merchant or something. And he's like, okay, you have your numbers, you have all your things, your math that you've learned, your accounting. Like, why do you need to go off to university with your buddy? And, what are you going to get there? And his dad, like, what are you going to do, man? And his dad, it was so funny. His dad said, I have 10,000 florins a year without Greek. I eat heartily without Greek. But his affection for me at length overcame his dislike for learning, and he permitted me to undertake a voyage of discovery to the land of knowledge. Yeah.
Well, that's, and I think about that, but keep in mind the monster got educated too. The monster read the books, but you know what? But he learned it in isolation.
In isolation,
and that can be a problem. You can misunderstand these things. You can read. You can read, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago about reading, which was the Shakespeare one of. Is that see? I have to keep learning because my forgetfully is much better than my memory.
Yes,
okay,
all the Shakespeare blends together.
Yes. So we're reading. I think we were reading Hamlet. I think yes, we were reading Hamlet, and he says there is no good and evil, but thinking makes it so. And you really have to be careful how you read that. And it's a lot deeper than just saying, well, Shakespeare said this, because he didn't say that.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to have somebody guide you. You can't just say, I'm going to sit down and read it, because I mean, come on, how arrogant are you? I mean, that's don't go there. I've tried that. It's a mistake. Surround yourself by big brain smart heads.
And then, and when you find something that you've read and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to people about it, email and message all your people and force them to read and talk about it. And then awesome stuff comes from that. Yeah,
it is amazing. This, like I said, that's pretty much been what this podcast has tried to do for the last 3 years is to bring those things out. And we hope that this episode has been helpful to you. Angela, thank you again. It is always a wonderful joy to have you on the show and to see you when we're not on the show.
Thank you. It's been great.
All right, wonderful. To the rest of you, I'm going to encourage you to seek the good, to be the good and spread the good and enjoy the adventure of life.